So I want to bring into this conversation Mahesh Jethmalani. Mahesh Jethmalani now joins me on the show. Mahesh Jethmalani, you're a distinguished lawyer. You are also a BJP MP. But sir, where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? And explain this link between China and the BBC. Why do you smell a rat, sir?
Well, the China link is that the BBC has received funds over a period of time from a Chinese-linked state entity called Huawei, a telecom company we've all heard about, right? And it has been doing this for a long time. Now, as you know, Huawei has been a security risk, designated a security threat in two countries which are our Quad allies, Australia and the United States. And finally, the UK, after first inviting them for trial for the 5G trials, right, under American pressure, Boris Johnson finally decided that they were also a security threat to the UK and they didn't want them to perform in the 5G trials. Now, notwithstanding the fact that they were banned from those trials and were sanctioned, the link which I put, the spectator link, which I annexed to my tweet, right, disclosed that, and this has never been denied, it is fully established, that they were taking money from Huawei, right, in an entity, overseas entity called Storyworks, right. Now, there's a history of anti-India propaganda. You're all too aware about it. They've castigated the Indian army for, activities that they never conducted in Jammu and Kashmir. They have presented a map of India. They've always published a map of India, truncated without Kashmir, right? And they were hauled up by the Indian government finally in 2021, right? And they had to apologize. So there's been a history of anti-Indian propaganda, and simultaneously there's been a history of receipt of money, right? There's a lot more to that. I can also tell you there's a lot more material out there in the public domain, which I have also gathered, right? The documentary content, source content, is heavily tainted. It's a very sinister source, right? And I will expose that gradually, right? So everything about this reeks of, yes, it's a sinister source. This whole thing is, reeks of malafide and bad faith. It reeks of a hatchet job.
Okay.
And
Mr. Jethmalani,
it is nothing else but a hatchet job.
Okay. You're calling it a hatchet job. You're saying it's sinister. But on the issue of Chinese funding and this documentary per se, are you alleging that BBC made a documentary on the Gujarat riots at China's behest? Why do you suspect the timing of this documentary, sir?
I suspect the timing, obviously. I mean, look at this. The documentary is essentially based on an inquiry report of 2002. That inquiry report, right, was carried out by the then Foreign Secretary of the UK, a gentleman by the name of Jack Straw. Now, you will find overwhelming material against Jack Straw regarding his connections with the Chinese state. Right? And he was also hauled up, incidentally, though this may not be of great relevance for the BBC documentary. He was also hauled up for a false report which he had curated for the purpose of on weapons of mass destruction, for the purpose of justifying the invasion into Iraq. He's also had other taints which are in the public domain, other skeletons in his cupboard, or taints on him.
Okay. But specifically on this BBC documentary and the Chinese funding of BBC, Congress MP Karthi Chidambaram spoke to us just a short while back, and he said if there is evidence of a direct link, it's a serious matter, should be taken up by the government, and all the evidence that you may have needs to be put in public domain, sir. I mean, the Congress looks at this as deflection tactics.
What do you mean a link? There is money from Huawei. They have not denied the Spectator report. They can't deny the report. And who is Karthi Chidambaram to say that? Why is he coming to the defense of BBC? He should be looking after his own interests, first of all. First of all, ask Karti Chidambaram, isn't he being investigated? Isn't he being investigated by the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate for taking money for giving Chinese visas illegally?
Okay,
Let me talk about China.
Okay, okay. You know, this political fight at home, you know, it's not just Karti Chidambaram. For example, if you were to talk about senior Congress leader and Congress MP Jairam Ramesh, you called him a Chinese pet, sir. Why?
It's again in the public domain. I mean, he's advocated for ages, both, I mean, since 2005, of all things in 2005 when he wrote that book, Chindia, he had at least 3 paragraphs devoted to the, you know, he exalted Huawei in that, I've also tweeted on that. He exalted them and said that the Indian government should allow them full access in India and expand their activities here. He repeated that when he went to China on a visit as Environment Minister. The Home Ministry then, the UPA Home Ministry, took serious objection to what he said. In spite of that, he went on, you know, tom-tomming that Huawei had a great role to play in India and its activities should be expanded. Finally, Dr. Manmohan Singh, his own Prime Minister, had to call him in and haul him up. And then he shut his mouth.
But sir, when you look at the story, a divided house on a very serious issue like China, is India's divided polity actually advantage China?
They question everything that the Indian Army has said. First they did it. Now, of course, the weight of evidence. And I saw I must return your compliment, Gaurav, your show showing the evidence of Pakistani leaders acknowledging Uri and Balakot, right? And saying they fear more, including then Prime Minister Imran Khan, has now that weight of evidence has forced them to keep their mouth shut, which is why Digvijay Singh was silenced by both Jairam Ramesh and Rahul Gandhi on the fag end of this Bharat Jodo Yatra, right? Now, the same thing is happening on China. They keep talking about as if China has been victorious in Doklam, China has been victorious in Tawang, China has been victorious in Galwan. And we've got a bloody nose, pitai hui hamari. Which kind of Indian uses that language? Are you a nationalist Indian or are you a hater of the Indian Army?
Okay. For joining me here on India First, Mr. Jethmalani, many thanks.